What is the largest planet in the solar system? If your answer is Jupiter, you are right, but Jupiter is not only very big, it also contains many mysteries that have fascinated scientists since it was discovered. On the other hand, thanks to more than one spacecraft that visited the planet, we have significantly expanded our knowledge about Jupiter. So what did scientists discover on Jupiter, and how did these discoveries affect the Sun and our world? Or what if the first gas giant of the solar system, Jupiter, is sick? Imagine that a strange red spot the size of a tennis ball appears on your body. You don't know how it came about, and doctors are just amazed. No one on the internet knows what it is either, and the spot sometimes decreases and sometimes increases and even peels off. So what's really going on? Is this spot ready to disappear, or is it slowly killing you? Of course, Jupiter cannot die because of the big red spot, but it may show some irreversible changes that we do not fully understand. After all, the most remarkable feature of the largest planet in the solar system is still one of the biggest mysteries of physics and astronomy. In today's video, we will talk to you about these. How many red spots does Jupiter actually have? How deep is this giant abscess on the planet's body? And finally, why doesn't the mysterious big red spot disappear? If you're ready, let's get started. When did the big red spot form? To make a correct diagnosis, it is essential to determine the exact start date of the disease. So when exactly did this big red spot form? This drawing was made by Italian astronomer Giovanni Cassini in 1665. The area where the spot is located is not very large and looks dark. In 1711, however, it was colored in a painting by Italian painter Donato Rettin. The people of that time saw the spot as a strange sea or a huge volcano peak. However, astronomers immediately realized that it was a vortex of a big storm. But if we look at old paintings and sketches, why do we see the spot in the North Hemisphere instead of in the South Hemisphere where it is located on Jupiter? There were no storms that could cross any planet's equator with such intensity. This inconsistency led some scientists in the past to think that the current big red spot was the second spot formed in the last 400 years. It could not be researched due to decades of gaps in observation when it came to how the first one disappeared and how this one emerged. But actually the answer was very simple. Old telescopes showed an inverted image due to their optical properties, and no one thought of correcting it at that time. Even at the end of the 19th century, the big red spot still looked northward, meaning we are dealing with the same formation on Jupiter's gaseous body, and it is thought to have emerged no later than the mid-17th century. In other words, this big red spot was at least a century older than the United States of America. The first high-quality photo shoot for the big red spot was done by roving probes in the late 1970s. That's when astronomers realized that the spot was slowly but surely moving across Jupiter's surface just like any superstorm on Earth. However, this comparison did not even provide any clarity about the spot. Why does the big red spot have nothing to do with other storms? Doctors always compare new disease with known ones. What makes this big red spot completely different from other superstorms? This Irma hurricane that occurred in 2017 looks very similar to the big red spot when viewed from space. So much so that both bend in opposite directions to clockwise. But even the most violent hurricane on Earth is almost twice as weak as the winds of the big red spot. Storms occurring in red spots can reach speeds of up to 650 kilometers per hour. This funnel made up of hydrogen, ammonia, and sulfur compounds can fit all hurricanes into 1.5 worlds. This funnel made up of hydrogen, ammonia, and sulfur compounds can fit all hurricanes into 1.5 worlds. But the difference between the Irma storm and the storms that occur here lies in Jupiter's nature. A typical tropical storm that hits Florida or Mississippi has a low atmospheric pressure center, a funnel-shaped vortex, and the big red spot is an anticyclone with a high center. If this spot had formed on Earth, it would have caused heavy snowfall and a strong winter storm. So much so that in infrared images, the big red spot is clearly colder than the atmosphere around Jupiter. Only any winter anticyclone on Earth would last not for centuries, but for only a few days. Scientists think that storms that last for such long years on a gas giant may be possible because there is no solid surface. As we know, all storms on Earth weaken when they hit land. But similar big dark spots on Neptune lasted only 5 years and disappeared without a trace, and the big white spots that appear on Saturn every 30 years disappear without leaving a trace. So even the nature of gas giants cannot explain why the big red spot on Jupiter grew so big and why it did not disappear. To understand what is happening in this huge storm on Jupiter, we need to take a closer look at it. How does a doctor deal with a patient with this planet? The International Space Station is interested in the big red spot. What kind of oddities are there on the outside of the big red spot? Apparently this storm is made up of exactly the same gases as the clear brown clouds on Jupiter. But maybe if we get closer, we can see that this red spot is like a crust in a wound. According to chemists, a giant hurricane lifts organic compounds from Jupiter's depths to the upper atmosphere. Otherwise these compounds would never end. Also, these compounds form substances called toluenes, which have a distinct dark red tone due to ultraviolet rays, and at the same time color these toluenes in this regard. But even toluenes cannot explain why the big red spot sometimes disappears and reappears, and this is not the only unexplained transformation they encounter. In old drawings, the big red spot was big enough to fit 3 worlds inside. We observed with Hubble telescope that oval big red spot slowly decreased and rounded for 30 years, and at the same time flakes the size of North and South America broke away from the vortex. This caused some scientists to assume that the big red spot on Jupiter would disappear by itself within the next 20 years. It is wider. Well, let's go back to Jupiter's huge size. Because scientists have discovered the impact of the planet's size on the entire solar system. Thanks to its large gravity, Jupiter has pushed Neptune and Uranus away from the Sun. This stems from a theory that claims that this caused a phenomenon known as late heavy bombardment, when Jupiter and other gas giants bombarded Earth and other nearby planets. But this is in the past. Because Jupiter now mostly plays a protective role for our planet. So much so that Jupiter acts as the vacuum cleaner of the solar system, protecting the inner planets and preventing asteroids and comets from reaching Earth. Moreover, the immense gravity created by the planet can absorb smaller objects like the collision of Jupiter and Shoemaker-Levy 9 comet in 1994. After all this information, you may be wondering if there is a possibility of life on Jupiter. According to scientists, if there was life on Jupiter, it would have to be in the clouds where the temperature is about 21 degrees Celsius. Studies show that Jupiter has enough water to sustain life. So maybe one day we can find evidence of life on Jupiter. It is more likely that there is life on one of Jupiter's moons, known as Europa, which may host a hidden ocean protected by radiation and may even have marine life here. You can share your thoughts on Jupiter with us in the comments section. See you in the next video. Goodbye.